Hello. Happy day. Happy Monday. Happy start of your week. Happy continued start of week. Happy day to all. Welcome to the show. I know this one's going to get a bit heady. Some folks might be upset by it, to be perfectly honest. Some of the things I have to say, not here to make anybody mad. I just want to provoke thought, critical thought. Okay? Okay. Um, so I just want to say hi to everybody in chat. I see a Bjorn. I see a Kieran. I see Suze. I always see Suze. I see Jason Garcia. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you all. And as part of this discussion, as always, it is a discussion, so please feel free to bring up your points all along the way. So I was trying to decide what I wanted to stream about today, and there was a few ideas that got bandied about, and I was like, nah, I want to talk about something a bit headier, something with some girth to it. Heady girth. Nah, that's not what I'm here for. But, there's been a lot of talk in the last 10, 20 years, specifically, about the idea of superheroes, comic books, the stories that we tell, being kind of positioned as modern mythology. I mean, certainly you've got Grant Morrison, who like literally linked some DC characters to ancient gods. Like that is an actual thing that occurred in the comics. But he also wrote a long form book about the concept of superheroes as modern mythology. It's very fascinating. Highly recommend that you read or audiobook that thing because it's great. Spoilers on the audiobook, he's not the one reading it. If you've ever heard Grant Morrison talk, he has a buttery voice. I like it. I enjoy it in my ear holes. He doesn't read the damn book. Big fail, in my opinion, but still a great book. And the audiobook is just fine. So there is that kind of literal, one-to-one, looking at Roman mythology, Greek mythology, certainly tales from all modern religions as well, which, depending upon your viewpoint, could be regarded as mythos. Again, not here to belittle or to offend, but again, depending upon your viewpoint, that could also be considered modern mythology, whether true or not. And so I think that comic books and superheroes being considered or regarded on that level is quite fascinating. So that's more or less what we're going to talk about today. I see Keith Knight. What's up, mate? I see I see a Ben. I saw Ben Stutley. I saw him. Okay, good. All right, cool. All right, great. And Keith, of course, coming in with only the kind of wisdom that Mr. Knight could. It's not about how big it is, it's about how you display it. That's right. That's right. And a recent toy acquisition, an unexpected one, definitely falls in there. You'll be hearing more about that here in the coming weeks, I'm sure. So it's good to see everybody. Before anybody asks, I'm drinking diet soda. I might be a little bit boring today with regards to that. It's grocery day, and the groceries aren't coming until well after the stream because I don't like it when I get interrupted by grocery deliveries during stream. So nothing exciting, no beer, no sheets to the four wind. You're getting Spock level Jim today. So when we think about superheroes and comic book characters as a modern mythos, I want to not draw direct parallels to specific gods or things like that. For me, it has more to do with what role does it feel culturally in society. So if you look at the ancient mythology that we tend to kind of associate with when we say mythology, most people are talking about that stuff, the Greek and the Roman stuff. And that was at a time when these stories were passed from generation to generation, and the mechanic of it was not just to entertain, but to explain what was at that time the unexplainable. Okay. And I think that superheroes and comic books, and certainly to a certain degree, comic book films, do much of the same thing, where you have these stories that are passed down from generation to generation. We're a good 4 generations in on these comic books, and the films are certainly 2 generations in themselves. Um, or 3 if you count some of the earliest, you know, ideas. And although we're not trying to explain the unexplainable per se, perhaps we are trying to describe an aspiration to which we might want to reach for. Okay. So, although I don't think that there are many people out there that sit there and say, I wish I had Superman's powers because I feel I could do good. But they look at Superman and they think, here's somebody who is truly accepting of all people, races, cultures, religions, and just tries to do the best he possibly can in the name of that ideal. I aspire to be that good of a person. I have met someone in my life, at least one. I know of one in particular that was so taken by the Superman character. He had multiple Superman S tattoos. He would wear Superman gear and belt buckles and stuff, but he was very, very much. He aspired to be the kind of person that the character of Superman taught him to be. He took it extremely seriously, almost to the level that many people regard their religions or philosophies. So, just as serious as a Buddhist monk, or just as serious as somebody who's in the seminary for Catholics, or a rabbi, whatever. And this was over 20 years ago. So, this is before like the resurgence of all this stuff. This is when there wasn't a big push cinematically for this stuff, and the nerd culture had not quite yet risen to the state that it is now. So this individual, being that devoted to an ideal that a character from a comic book taught him, was extremely unexpected, right? And it makes me think that, because I certainly have direct ties to specific characters, and I've said it often on this show. You've got Godzilla and Peter Parker, Spider-Man. These 2 characters very much inform my philosophy of how I'd like to attack life. Peter Parker with his sense of humor and being able to look at problems pragmatically, trying to solve them, but being human. And then whereas Godzilla is more of a, look, I don't care if you bring a 3-headed dragon, like, we're gonna stomp the shit out of this, like, kind of thing. So it's this kind of clumsy, oafish, but also very human approach to things. And I like to think that I embody them both. But it's gotten to the point where I actually have a, quote, fake or real religion based on Godzilla that I created 10 years ago, called Kaijudaism. And it is very tongue in cheek. If the tongue was any more in cheek, it would go through the cheek, okay? I don't have a literal worship thing with Godzilla, although one could argue that I do, but it's not the same as standard religion or theism, if you will, because I do not believe that Godzilla actually exists and has any power over my life. It's more of a pagan style philosophy where I'm using it as a figurehead and as kind of a, well, I could go in this direction. If for no other reason, then it's just fun. I like saying Godzilla damn it a hell of a lot more than I like saying goddamn. Like, it's just better. Okay. So there's a meme that is often posted on my personal Facebook page or on Twitter, and I'm added, where it's this person sees this, Godzilla bless you. Oh, gee, thanks. Wait, did you just, it's non-denominational. you know, that kind of a thing. And it's one of my favorites, and it's something that kind of informs the whole thing. It's like, well, maybe I don't have the same kind of spiritualism that a large number of people have in their lives, but I've chosen to kind of focus it in a direction that I feel comfortable with, right? So if I can feel that way about one character, and I've met someone who can feel very strongly, arguably stronger, about a different character, and you combine that with this cultural documentation of the fact that people do tend to flock to these characters, I think it's worth speaking about that we have a culturally agreed upon basis of mythos that kind of transcends just stories about guys and gals and colored spandex fighting each other. I think there's more to it. We're talking about morality tales. We're talking about learning how culture works and opening minds and hopefully becoming better people because of these stories that on the outset were, let's face it, kind of silly. So that's kind of where my head is at. And I see some things in chat here I do want to catch up. Jason Garcia says that he believes that Justice League War, the animated movie, Wonder Woman literally refers to the League as the new Pantheon, essentially. And also display it on a shelf, bad lighting, never dusting. There you go. There you go. I see Will McLaughlin, nice to see you. I see Daniel Dorian, nice to see you. Dun, 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 dun. And Jason says, I mean, you buy his figures and display them. Isn't that a shrine to Godzilla? Sort of. It. I look at that as more of a shrine to what the character has meant to me over the years, and a shrine to the memories that surround that character and those stories. I don't kneel in front of my toys or have candles lit around them, so I don't think that shrine is a direct enough description. But I get where you're going, and you're not completely off base there, in my opinion. Ben Sutley picking up on the Kai Judaism goes, I like that. Nice wordplay. Like, thank you. Thank you. Gojatron, hey Carl, good to see you, pal. Says superheroes are the modern extension of the heroic stories of Greek myths, Arthurian legend, etc. But I hope no one actually worships them as deities unless it's done ironically. I agree, because they don't actually exist. Like there's literal proof that these are fictional, not real things. But I have to say that a lot of the philosophies that these characters tend to embody are not things one should shy away from to emulate in life. So I think in that sense, the worship or treating them as a deity in that sense, I don't necessarily think that that's harmful to someone who maybe otherwise does not have a philosophy that they follow. Okay. But I want to be clear that they're not. I don't think any of these characters are literal deities or gods to be worshipped, and that there's other sides of that we're going to talk about here a little bit. But I'm with you on that for sure. Jason Garcia comes back with a shrine to madness. Cue Black Dahlia Murder Song. I see it. I got you. I get you, sir. I get you, sir. So, as we think about these things, I mean, there's certainly some characters that maybe one shouldn't really lean into. I and I should get this out of the way. I just saw a comment from Mr. Salzberg, and I have a box here from you. We're going to open at the end of the stream because I'm not really sure what it is. I think I know what it is, but I don't know. I don't know. So many things flying in and around the HQ, so I don't know for sure. We're going to open here. But I do want to get something out. I want to put a moratorium on this. This Happy V Day and Valentine's Day to us. I don't do Valentine's Day. I don't have a lot of fun with it because I'm a strong proponent of I don't need a special day to tell you how special you are. I try to show a partner that they're special all the time. Today, for me, is Happy Cheap Chocolate Day. That is where my heart lies for this stuff. But I really feel that the holiday is so overblown and so corporatized for no good reason. Like I can take her out for a good meal on any day, that we decide we're going to go do that and have a great time and have it be special. And if you can't say that about your relationship and it has to be on this very specific day where there's hearts everywhere, maybe examine your fucking relationship. Just me. But thank you for the sentiment. It does mean a lot. I just wanted to put a moratorium on it because I think it's a sham holiday, personally. And it's a way to drain bank accounts for no good reason. Spread that money out throughout the year and shower them endlessly with good things. That's my thought process. See, just so those of you watching later can see. See, she refuses to go out on Valentine's Day regardless. So no matter how we're looking at it, it's like, bleh, it's not worth it. There's no point. Yep, there you go. Aaron says, I sound like you. Well, I mean, yes. I mean, that's just how it is. Kieran Ball says, I don't believe in false gods. And the days of admiring superheroes has long gone, especially considering current comic books that are coming from Marvel and DC. Excellent. So you don't go down the road of these, worshiping a non-deity like this, like a false idol, okay? And even admiring the characters, there's a certain degree of, and pardon the phrase, if you will, but there's a certain degree of heresy in the characters as they're portrayed today versus what you grew up with and did admire. Would that be accurate to you, Karen Paul? Because I can understand that absolutely. Like I don't really engage in the modern comic books at all. Um, I really don't. I take what I kind of grew up with and just kind of hang on to that rather doggedly so, and take some elements from the more modern stuff I like. Like I like a lot of the stuff that's out there cinematically. There's a lot of stuff that I'm like, it's fine. But that's going to vary from person to person. But I appreciate your input for sure. Jason says that today's the reason there's so many November babies. Not wrong. My mother was born at the end of November, or she was born on November the 30th. And I didn't make that connection until just this second. I'm not bullshitting you. I'm like, oh, okay. I never even thought about that before, but thank you for bringing that to my attention. Well, bit of cardboard comes in and says that that he finds Superman has been written at too powerful. Writers today have really no understanding of how to write for character like that. In the Justice League cartoon, he even admitted he was not all powerful. That's a slightly off-center topic, but I think it has relevance because so many of the powers that have been created for him were created out of necessity or just as some kind of reverse MacGuffin kind of a thing. Famously, he began to fly on the radio show, or rather, he began to fly on the radio show to solve a problem or the comic book on the radio, like they did kryptonite, so that he could have him go away without dying, like stuff like that. I would agree that Superman has, a Swiss Army body that he can kind of do whatever works, right? But I feel like a character like that, when you have a character that's documented to be that powerful, right? I think an interesting place to go would be what goes through a person's head when they have that much power, even if it's the lower level of power that we know to exist in that character most of the time. How do you function? How do you on a day-to-day basis? Like, can you imagine? Like, he can't really get drunk, because he's too powerful, right? And alien physiology and all that. But what if he could? Can you imagine the fear that would be through him? Like, you think about a drunk driver. Now imagine a drunk Superman. And, I'm not referencing Superman 3 here. But just shaking somebody's hand out of politeness or giving them a hug the wrong way, you could kill them. And that's the Superman that we grew up with, not necessarily this overpowered schoolboy that we have now. Um, and I think that using comic book characters to explore these ideas of what do we do with power? How do we deal with responsibility? Spider-Man is another good example of that, where he is a constant bastion of, if I don't do this and something bad happens, I am responsible indirectly for the bad things that happen. I think that's great, and but that's what I'm talking about, like how these stories for a lot of us growing up kind of became this way for us to deal with larger emotions and concepts at an earlier age than most people are going to have. And I think that's part of why you see a lot of kids who are regarded as relatively smart or smarter than some of their peers. Those are the ones that tend to get into comic books. I'm not trying to, throw any shade on anyone who wasn't into comic books, but generally speaking, um, that's kind of where things tended to go, in my opinion. Have a safe drive home, Mr. Cardboard. Have a safe drive. Ben Sully says, maybe like the Hero with a Thousand Faces book, Joseph Campbell. Isn't it all a retelling of the same morality plays anyway? Yeah, to a certain degree, that's definitely true. I think that because comic books are not necessarily dealing with a three-act structure most of the time, that you can kind of get away with um, something that's not necessarily, an ad hoc, verbatim retelling sort of a situation. Like I think that's um, it's not as adherent to that as say a Star Wars or what have you, but it's definitely in there for sure. Absolutely, absolutely. Kieran Ball, thank you for confirming that I understood your point, and I'm glad that I did. Jason Garcia says, there's that joke about Spider-Man being an ass while drunk who tricks people to think they can float on the powerful winds. Fair enough. Daniel Dorian says, Christopher Reeve isn't the best Superman. He is Superman. Right. So there's like, you have this indelible, powerful memory, this image burnt into your mind. This is the guy. Because he is very similar, like as you say, like he was a philanthropist and he was a whole human, really wanted to see people become their best selves. And whether or not that was inspired by the Superman character, I don't know. But certainly, interesting life that man led for sure. Bjorn Jorgensen is saying there'd be 1,000% chance people would use their powers for super bad things. I mean, you're not wrong. People get dumb all of the time. People get dumb all the time, and it doesn't have to be a power like super strength, super speed, or what have you for it to go down that road. Kieran Ball says, even as we speak, as the DC universe, extended universe, attempts to attract fans with movies about Batman, The Flash, Superman, and Wonder Woman, the comic books are all killing them off in another Crisis comic reboot. Right. It's they'll do anything to sell comic books these days, and I mean I can't say that I blame them for taking desperate measures, because it is hard to get people into comic books these days. It just is. It's just too much media out there. But I think that the whole like, "Ooh, we're gonna kill him," like that's well worn territory. You got to keep Peter Parker around. You got to keep all these different superheroes around. Like this is not helping. It's not helping. But I certainly feel like um, whether we're talking the comic book or film version of a character, everyone's got that one. Like Daniel Dorian saying unpopular opinion, but to them, Michael Keaton is the best Batman. I don't know that that's unpopular. I think a lot of people just kind of go that to me is always will be the standard. Um, for me, it's if we're talking about a visual medium, that has emotion, a motion picture kind of a thing, I'd have to go with the animated series Batman as being the definitive Batman overall. However, to me, Batman is the, you know, um, Neil Adams run from the 70s. With all the Daughter of the Demon stuff and Ra's al Ghul stuff, and that to me is Batman, and a lot of the work he did on defining the design of that character, just refining it, went into a lot of the illustrations that became part of Super Friends and later the Superpowers team and collection. So those, to me, that's the definitive idea of Batman, the world's greatest detective, right? But in terms of film, absolutely adore Keaton. I've enjoyed them all for different reasons, um, but just probably because he was my first. As far as like that, they took it seriously. That I think is probably where I'm at as well. So, Jim Salzberg says Neil Adams' visual of your Batman, but Kevin Conroy's the voice. Yep, yep. When I go back and read the old Neil Adams stuff, I read it in Kevin Conroy's voice in my head. Very much so. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ben Sutley says that you would say that superheroes haven't become a religion, though. To your mind, that would mean groups of people enforcing rules on each other. Aha! But this gets into another part of our discussion. I'm going to spring something on you. When you look at the modern day cinematic and the comic books versions of these characters and how people tend to really rally behind or against them in droves, fanboys and girls of varying degrees of fanaticism. I don't know that I agree with you, because people are enforcing rules on each other throughout this. Well, that isn't Batman. Batman doesn't do that. And when someone tries to write what they consider as an interesting story that maybe falls outside of what the ideas behind that might be, they rail against it. So they're kind of going from this biblical standard of what a character is and saying, well, they wouldn't do that. It's exactly how they sound. I could go through this with pretty much every cinematic portrayal of any character in the last 20 years. Someone has popped, well, that's not, like they just freak out. And they're trying to impart a standard for a character. And if you like a version of the character that perhaps deviates from what is generally considered to be the classic version of that character, you are viewed in some ways as a heretic. So to me, this is absolutely a thing, because people get really caught up in this stuff. And that's also true of other characters. Star Trek, Star Wars, all this kind of stuff. And I feel like in today's day and age, that happens with so many fandoms, but I think superheroes are probably the most easily identified as such. And it's nice to see Mr. Bucho here. Evening, sir. One of my buddies from over on the Order 42 show says, yes, good old gatekeeper syndrome. Exactly. Where people want to keep a hold on something because it brings them joy. They don't want anyone else to enjoy it in a way different from what they had. It's very, very familiar to me when we think about how people in actual religions, in some cases, tend to treat people that are not of that religion or that are not meeting the standards of those religious beliefs, where they are just finger pointed and and I'm not here to preach to anyone about any religion you do or do not ascribe to or your political beliefs. It's not my place. It's not what this is about. But I do want to draw the parallel between that kind of behavior and the way fandoms tend to interact, particularly on social media like YouTube and Twitter and things like that. There seems to be this kind of rabid need to be correct, right? Like, My Batman is this. You're gonna put Twilight Boy in there. It's not gonna be my Batman anymore. Like, motherfucker, there's 70 plus years of Batman out there, coming up on 100 years of Batman. And if up to a certain point it stops driving with you, you just got this huge chunk of media you can hang on to forever and not be challenged. Some people in changing times want something different, and I can always appreciate that. I tend to view things and criticize them based on what they are rather than what I think they should be, or what the potential of what they should be was. The Book of Boba Fett's a good example. The Eternals is probably a good example as well, where neither of those endeavors lived up to the expectations that should or could have been set upon them. I think they both succeeded in entertaining me on some level, but there was far more wasted potential, in my opinion, on both of those projects. But they exist. They're not going to pull them off the shelves. That's what I have. So I tend to forgive it enough to allow it to exist without making my pee red. So, that said, criticism of these kinds of works are welcome, they're valid, and can only serve to inform future endeavors to set the bar higher when we're talking about these things that has influenced us culturally for 30 or more years. So I may not be the first person to stand up and be like, ah! But I understand it and I agree with it. I also want to be entertained on some level. But if we don't have that kind of criticism for these things, eventually it will just become them shoveling shit into our mouths and we're going, I don't want that. But what I'm really referring to more so is the fans jumping down each other's throats about these things. I've said it for years. This whole I'm right, you're wrong philosophy is just, the art of the debate is lost. And this comes when you have fanatical followings for ideas and characters and things that they have a personal attachment to, which is not dissimilar from religion and how people tend to interact with religion. I think that there's a lot more in common in these two cultural phenomena than not, even if one is not, it's not a direct one-to-one. World by Carba says the thing is Jewish. There are others research yeah, absolutely. Yep. Where there's like certain sects of society are represented directly in certain characters, to give them, like, you look at the X-Men, of course, and their parallels to the civil rights movement and so forth. So yeah, there's definitely real life kind of avatars out there for sure. Will McLaughlin says, perhaps it's just human nature to behave in these ways. I've seen fanatics in every group I've joined, from bands. Yeah, that's another one. And toy groups to Star Wars and video game groups. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. And Will, by the way, thank you for joining us on Patreon over the weekend. I appreciate that. And I see Bucho has subscribed to the channel. Only took him, 2 fucking years. That's fine. I love you, Bucho. It's good to see you. Ben Sully says, I can watch it without making my pee red. Good. Gojitron says, there is an hour-plus long documentary available on YouTube. I know the one that details the development of the Batman animated series with the creators. Well worth a watch. Yes. It's part of the Blu-ray set that came out around that time. And during the pandemic, they made it available on YouTube and just never took it down. It's a really good documentary and well worth the time investment. And if you like it, I would suggest, if you don't own the animated series on Blu-ray, plunk down the money when it's on sale for around 30-40 bucks. It's worth it. Physical media, go for it. Karen Ball says The Eternals was a non-starter, basically basing a movie on a failed comic book without improving the material, but actually making it worse is utterly baffling. Welcome to Hollywood. Will McLaughlin says, actually intended to join a long time ago. Thought I had. So sorry for not being more pursuing. Oh, no need to apologize, my friend. I appreciate you. But as we, look at these links between people who are fanatically religious, people who are fanatically into characters and different political ideals, and you look at the kinds of behavior that they tend to all evoke or invoke. It's very similar. I can't. For me, it's so blatantly obvious that people in each generation look for certain things to hang their proverbial hat on. Like this is how things are. And when someone comes along and challenges those ideas, they go into a frickin' mess. They just absolutely go ape shit about it. And this movie doesn't. This isn't my this that, or you're not a real fan. You ever hear that one? I have. You're not a real fan. You don't collect the entire toy line, therefore you're not a real collector. Like it's insane. It's insane. But also depressingly predictable from passionate groups of human people. It's something that it's going to happen. If people get excited enough about something, this type of behavior will happen over and over and over again. So what I'm trying to get at is that in our corner of the universe where we do collect all these kinds of things, I think the onus is on us as what I would consider reasonable, thoughtful, critically thinking human, people, to do our best to try to understand what the person across the aisle is saying. Now, that is not saying someone throws out some fucking bullshit and they're throwing out personal attacks and all this stuff. Obviously, the hell with that person. They're just they're not worth your time. But someone who has an actual point to make about a character or an idea or a film or whatever, and if they're presenting it with respect, and even if it differs, listen and see what they have to say. You might learn something. But as we see so often, people can't have that kind of discourse over and over and over again. And I'm speaking mainly in the YouTube comment section and the Twitters of the universe and things like that. I think that those of us we all mutually know of that do an excellent job of publicly slapping idiots in the face need to continue to do that, because idiocy must be crushed at all costs. And when we talk about, talking to, we use the term fanboys a lot in these circles where these fanboys, like, oh, fucking, oh, wow. And then you just start going off and smacking them around verbally. These are the kind of people that will not budge, that cannot accept an alternate viewpoint, that cannot stand that you don't agree with them. And those are the kind of people that need to be rooted out and either corrected. And by corrected, I mean they need to understand that the art of debate is real, that differing opinions exist, and it does not end their life if those opinions exist. That opinions are not facts, that they are designed to be challenged. So I will always salute the idiot smashers by and large. I've done my share of it in the past. Suze can tell you, I've said some pretty horrendous things towards certain sects of certain fandoms over the years. Um, I try to avoid that for myself at this moment as much as I can, for the simple fact that I only have so much energy in my old fat body. But I will certainly um, help promote and, you know, high five anyone willing to do these things, because I think that fanatical behavior that leads to mental instability and a breakdown of their basic humanity needs to be rooted out and crushed and destroyed. Whether we're talking about comic books, films, television, any ideas that a human being can express in today's day and age and supposedly enlightened culture. I am so sick and tired of willful ignorance and one that chooses stupidity and irrational behavior over something that should be a joy to speak about. So when we ask the question, are superheroes gods? To some people, yes, they are. And if you fuck with that idea, they will go to town on you and try to lynch you on the internet. And I think that's just insane. Catching up with some comments here. Kieran Ball says, of course, before the current religious fervor over superheroes, a similar thing occurred with Hollywood actors, pop and rock stars, and TV stars. 100% fact. 100% fact. There's always a different target for the public to shoot at. Nice to see you, Ian. Jason Garcia says, basically, the metalhead community, the gatekeeping there is horrendous. Believe me, I've been guilty of it. And it's weird when you wake up one day and you realize you've been doing something really horrible. I used to be the guy, and this would happen guy or girl, but the meme typically is it's a girl that says she's into metal. And I'll be like, name a song title, name an album. And I would do that. And I didn't care what their gender was or their sexual identity or anything like that. I would just be like, well, this is important to me that I am defining my identity off of this. So you must be knowledgeable for me to accept you into this tribe. And it's a horrible gatekeeping thing to do. I grew out of it, thank goodness. And instead of trying to root out posers, I now take joy in showing people things they don't otherwise know, because there's a lot of little nooks and crannies in metal that just people have forgotten. And so I love just showing this stuff off, like, oh, look at all this stuff, and just dumping all this amazing music out onto the table. That, for me, has become a source of joy rather than a source of stress. And I hope that more people do that. Ted Milich says, I can't stay, get ready for work, catch me later, but don't forget to leave a like. Thank you, Ted. You're the best. Love you to death, sir. Bucho here agreeing with Will McLaughlin. So we all evolves pretty hardwired travel tendencies, and in modern times, these tend to come out in all manner of loyalties, from pop culture to sports franchises to politics. Yeah, 100% agreed. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Ben says, sometimes our monkey side can't come up with the size of the tribes in the internet. Yeah. Like, yeah, there's a lot of that going on Twitter and on YouTube especially. And, Will makes a good point. Sometimes it's just being a bully, and many people put others down to feel better about themselves. That's true. That's certainly a type of behavior that exists. Obviously we all knew that from school age and things like that. And Sue says, yeah, I can't name a lot of metal songs like what Jim listens to, but I listen to them and like them too, just not a real fan. That's the thing. Not a real fan. I would say that the terminology should be, you are a fan, but not a hardcore fan. But you are real. You exist. I can touch you. You are there. And if I put on something like Last Days or Putrepile or Sinister or whatever, I have a 1 in 10 chance that you're going to groove to it. That's normal. But there was a time no girlfriend of mine, blah, blah, blah. Like, I would have just been a different guy. Like, you're gonna listen to this, you're gonna like it, and it is any wonder I was divorced twice before I was the age of 30. Uh, just saying, there was certainly some baggage that came along with that, and thankfully, I grew out of that. But thank you, dear. Rolled Man of Cardboard says, I have loved Godzilla since childhood, but even as a kid, I knew that some of the movies are terrible. Fact. And I'll concede that all at the same time. See, I will concede that all the time. Some current fandoms do not seem to understand that. Yeah, and again, using like Eternals as an example, like I knew going in that this was probably not going to be a on par film at all because there's no Jack Kirby around to inform those characters. And friends of mine have reminded me, like, here's what these were, and this was what the intention was supposed to be. But then I watched, and I was like, because to me, the entire film existed to give me essentially the last 10 minutes. You establish what these characters are, which takes us to a different place where we can get much more interesting characters that have a lot more impact on the world at large for Marvel. So, on one hand, I was like, they could have taken more time to develop these characters and really dig deep into it. That would have been a good Disney Plus thing, right? But with what they ended up doing with it, I'm like, well, shit. I'm just glad the movie's over. I'm just glad it's done. I'm just glad it's done. So that's an entire mood, as the kids are bound to say. Bucho says that he was a punk gatekeeper back in the day. Green Day aren't real punks. Yeah, seems so dumb. I look back on it, but when you're young and forming an identity, you're super susceptible to tribalism. Absolutely, absolutely. Bum 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 bum. Well, McLaughlin says, all right to love something and not also acknowledge it's not for everyone. Absolutely. When I did a movie review, well, mainly movies, but we reviewed other stuff. But I started out as movie reviews on YouTube and stuff. And the tagline was, just because you love something doesn't prevent it from being ridiculous. Which is something that, has served me well in life. And I'm certain that Sue says that to herself at least once a day. Like, this motherfucker over here is ridiculous. Like, his shirt and his hat don't even match. Orange and green. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Battle Cat. That's what I'm thinking. Green, orange stripes, man. Speaking of green with orange stripes, I have some Amber Collection Velociraptors coming my way. I know I've never expressed interest in collecting dinosaurs, but here we are. Here we are. I got one of the tiger stripe ones, and I got an echo one coming. A few people had kind of pointed them out to me over the last couple of months, but having a conversation with Salzburg, which our conversations tend to go a certain way, and he's like, hey, do you want one of these? I'm like, yeah. So we worked out a deal, and we're getting that taken care of, which is really cool. And I ordered an Echo Velociraptor today. And I want to get a few of them because the scale is so good. And I want to get a few of them. And I really want to take a couple of the tiger ones and repaint one of them to look like Battle Cat, green with orange stripes. And I want to try and fashion a saddle on them and try to make them mounts for Origins figures and stuff, because I'm weird. I don't know why. It's not really relevant to the conversation, but I'm just really excited about having Velociraptors. So we're just going to let that happen. Karen Ball says, your favorite Godzilla movie as a child was the original Godzilla vs. King Kong? Yeah. As a kid, great. Knockdown, drag-out fight. For me, it was Godzilla vs. Megalon. Horrible film. Horrible film. And especially if you watch it with dubbing, because whoever dubbed the young Japanese child in that film needs punched in the face, because it's like I'm like, oh my god, it was horrible. It was horrible, and it's grating on the ears. You have to like really mess with it to get to not sound like your ears are going to explode. It's a whole thing. Bum, 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 bum. Lots of great back and forth conversation. I'd love to see it. Yeah, you're talking about Jurassic Park Amber Collection. Yeah. Um, I'm just trying to just piece together some stuff. Like there's a set that's got a baby T Rex and some like little baby Velociraptors, and I was like, but it's good. I I haven't decided yet what T Rex I'm going to end up with, but and but this is why Jim has it right here. Glad to help you drain your bank account. There you go. And I got some cool things that I'm not going to discuss yet. They're not toys, but the collectibles that I think everyone here is going to be like, those that recognize them are going to be really insane by them. So I'll be doing a video on this as soon as they arrive. I'm going to come back to some other comments, but I see Mr. Largo here, brother. Good to see you. It says, howdy. Sorry, I can't stay. Got a date. Ooh. Catch you on the replay. Love your furry face. I love your furry face, bro. Have a great time. Get out. Blow the stink off of you. We'll talk soon, brother. I love you. Asking me from Will McLaughlin says, do you remember the Jurassic Park Chaos Theory tours in the 90s? And they were all sorts of wacky colors, made no sense about the hell of them. I remember them, but didn't like the color scheme, which is why I did not buy them. That's a fact. Absolutely. Ooh. I might tell you what it is, Jim. After the show, I'll tell you what it is. Waiting on your male raptor from BBTS, yeah. There's a company out there that makes scientifically accurate dinosaurs. Are they anatomically correct? Or like what are we doing here? Is there like Velociraptor dong? Like the inquiring minds want to know. Because if they're scaled right, like I'm in. I just need the right scale. Because all right, I got you, Jim. But the idea of them being, in that 6-inch scale, it opens up a lot of cool possibilities for me. Because you can use them to think about like Savage Land from, like Dinosaur Island with the X-Pen and all that stuff, and also really blend well with Motu and stuff like that. And plus, I just really like dinosaurs. I really like those dinosaurs, and I actually really enjoyed all of the Jurassic Park films. I actually like them all, and I like the Jurassic World stuff to a certain degree. Even though I just saw the trailer for the new one, and my immediate reaction was, "Oh, I'm in," because they're bringing the band back together. Like it's getting both casts together for one like super movie, and if they do it right, it'll be really cool. But I have a feeling they're not going to do it right, and they're going to like fan service the shit out of us in the wrong way, and I won't like it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. That's a piece of information I didn't know. There's the ones with the dinosaur toys from the Smithsonian use the old Dino Rider molds. That's possible. That's possible. Accurate and expensive. Wish you'd back this tri collection. Gotcha. Stephen S says Godzilla versus Megalon is truly shit, but I love it. Everything you said about it is true. Yeah, like Jet Jaguar. Like, come on. Like, I don't know if they make an 11-inch scale Jet Jaguar, like a giant one. I know they make the 6-inch one, and I keep looking at that figure, but I really want one to go with the Godzillas that I have. He only appeared one time in one film and is really a ripoff of Ultraman in many ways. But I love that character, and I love all the sign language shit. Like, "Rah" means hold him. I'm going to get on my tail and slide into him with my feet first. That's what this means. It makes no sense. I freaking love it. I love it. They're called beasts of the Mesozoic. William McGuire says, asking about their dongs and then going right into scale and holding your arms up like that made my childish mind go to a totally wrong train of thought. Like, they're this big. Fair enough. Oh, fair enough. Kieran Ball. It's pretty sharp. Scientifically accurate dinosaurs, that would just mean the bones, right? Boom, 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 boom. I'm with you on that. X Plus has a large jet jaguar. Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. Cool. Amigo jet jaguar. That's interesting. And it would be close enough in scale. Hmm. Hmm. See where you're going. I can dig it. I can dig it. It was like I remember them. Like they had all these dinosaurs that were just bones. They had these little cavemen that would like ride them around and shit. I forget the name of it. And I want to say it was a Kenner thing. I don't know for sure. I don't know, but I think I know what you're. Is that the one you're talking about from like the '80s, where you had all these dinosaurs that were bones, and then you had like the little rider, but they were, and it made no sense. There was no mechanical anything, and Gojatron with the save Bone Age. Bonage. But yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking of. Whether or not that's what Jim is talking about, I don't know. I hope so. Interesting stuff. He's like, yeah, I can't remember that much. Same actually. Like I'll see something and go like, oh my god, I forgot that existed. Like last summer when I remembered that air raiders exist. My mind exploded. There were pieces of brain all over the floor here. It took me days to clean it all up. I was like, I don't remember. It was very important to me. But yes, Goji, this one's for you, sir. So, as we've been going an hour, with anything like this, I like to leave the last half hour for free form talk. Ask me or tell me anything that's on your mind. We'll talk about it, whether it's about today's topic or anything else you want to discuss. I am here for the next half hour to do all of these things. Migo's making Ultraman. Boom, boom, boom. But you could probably buy an Ultraman figure, have someone make the soft goods, and then repaint his head and probably be like maybe making it's too much work. That's too much work for customization. But for me, right? I have one bottle of plastic weld. And I already know I'm gonna be using a bunch of it very soon. Because I've got to fix the. I got to fix. So I got one of those vamps from Nerd Rage, and the post office treated that box brutally. There's a lot of broken pegs I got to fix, but it's all there. Nothing is irreparably damaged, but I'm going to be doing that. I got to fix the turret on the helicopter, and I think there's some stuff on my Snake Mountain that I have to use that on. And certainly, I will be using it with my Brainiac. The only thing I need now to fix my Brainiac is the proper sized drill, like a pin drill. When I get that, I've already got the Lego pieces hanging out here somewhere, courtesy of Mr. Badger. I just have to actually drill the holes, put the piece in, glue it in, have the arm on. So definitely something that's on the short list. But it's weird, like when you get a bottle of plastic weld, you start thinking of all the things you can freaking fix. It's kind of crazy to think about the whole thing. Without going into great detail, it does feel like that happened. For sure. But again, all fixable. I have to sit down with him on camera, make sure I'm putting the right parts in the right places, kind of a thing. Make sure I know how to assemble it properly. But it looks great, and I love the thing very much. I'm very grateful for it. But it is something that is going to take some fixing, which is fine. It's okay. But we'll get there. It's like anything else, man. Like I've had stuff arrive, like stuff that should have arrived destroyed because the way it was packed arrived in pristine condition, and vice versa. Like there's no um, consistency. Yeah, Dave does make it look way too easy. Will he really does? Um, However, it, I've seen him do it so many times and hear him explain it so many times that I'm confident that with the right tools, I can do it. So I'm waiting like on. I ordered like those little uh paint trays he has, like the little tiny ones, like little tiny ashtrays. I ordered those, so I need that. I need brushes, so I'm waiting on those. They'll be here tomorrow, probably, and then I can begin this journey. So I'm like, where am I going to pour the plastic? Oh, and then everything I could think of to pour them in were plastic, and I'm like, that's not going to end well. It's gonna melt the plastic, and you're like, ah! It's gonna go through the thing. Like, I don't want that. I don't need that at all. Wilson, I tried to make some homemade cakes based on his, and they were a disaster. Not giving up, and we'll get there someday. If you're wanting to talk to someone who might be able to walk you through some of their techniques to go in a slightly different direction, there's a guy called the Cape Master. He's on Instagram. He has his own website as well, but on Instagram it's very easy to get a hold of. He's also a pretty good toy dealer. I would recommend speaking with him to get some tips and tricks. That he comes from a slightly different angle. Um, there you go, perfect. I've gotten all of my capes. I've gotten are from him, and he's amazing at what he does. And if I were wanting to make stuff, that's someone I would also check it out. Bjorn asks, "Anyone watched the recent sports ball championship?" Yes, we did watch it. Enjoyed the game, even though Suze was physically exhausted by the end of it. She's just like, "I'm tired. I want to go to bed. Just finish the game." And I'm like, "What if they go into overtime?" She's like, "I don't want them to go into overtime. I want to go to bed." And they didn't. And one team won. One team's dreams were crushed. The commercials were middling at best. It was fun. It was fine. I enjoyed it because the playoffs were really good this year. I actually enjoyed the majority of the games, especially the championship games. Like, whoo, those were some nail biters. So I knew we were going to get some good stuff going into this one. Um, Great game. Great game. If you haven't seen it yet, you've been avoiding spoilers, by all means, go check it out. But feel free to skip the commercial, except for the Barbie Dreamhouse one. That's a commercial all of you need to watch. That's all I got to say. It's definitely a good one. Well, says I'll check them out. Let's try to make superpower style case for the new 4-inch Spin Master DC and Batman line. There you go. That's exactly the kind of stuff that he does. He uses exact fabrics. Like it is almost indistinguishable from the real thing. And on the Batman one, you may have seen in the previous video, the Batman one that I got from my Superpowers collection Batman, it's longer than the one that came with the figure, so it's much more like ha ha ha. I like it very much. Too old and fat to make it to the end of the Super Bowl. Don't blame you. They extended out a lot too. Ben Sutley says, "Would you say 'May your God go with you' is a fair conclusion on the religion topic? Like live and let live, or is that woke now?" I'm lost on what that word even means now. Well, I think that word is going to mean something different depending upon who you're talking to, right? And I definitely agree that live and let live is probably the best way to go in any of these situations that we're talking about, Ben. Um, you have to respect that people come to their opinions from a specific place. And as long as they're coming at you with their opinions from a respectful and careful place, um, then they should be accepted. Yeah, absolutely. But it's the people that are like, those can eat a dick. So, but I do think that it's certainly something to consider. And like I said, that the G word, it's going to be something different to everybody. as it should, in my personal opinion. Um, Doctor Strange trailer, definitely hyped for it. Looks very cool. Looks very cool. Bum, bum, bum. Sue's saying that she said that before, had it said to use nice sentiment, knowledge does a lot. Absolutely. Bjorn Jorgensen is using some Final Faction stuff to make custom swarm troopers. 3 3/4 inch stormtroopers. Okay. Okay. Kieran Ball says famous Irish comedian Dave Allen would always end his shows with the words, "And may your God go with you." Cheers. Got it. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with agreeing to disagree and encouraging someone to have their faith flourish in whatever. A good example is, like, I'm a huge Red Dwarf fan, but I don't like Doctor Who. I don't dislike it. It's just I'm never quite on the thing. But Whovians are a lot of my best friends are Whovians. It sounds weirdly racist. Like, some of my best friends are Whovians. What? Um, but I'll never be into the show. I just won't, and that's fine. I don't need to be, but I appreciate others' joy and reverence for that particular fandom. Whereas I'm over here with Red Dwarf and Night Court, and I'm just kind of like, okay. So it's a whole thing. And here's a perfect example. This is possibly why I'm so tolerant with the whole music thing these days. She's Whovian. I don't begrudge her. There may have been a time in my life where someone, I formed a relationship with somebody and they're like, I'm into Doctor Who. I'm like, bye, I can't look at you anymore. Not really true. But but it was um we're on those different sides of things, but we enjoy each other's joy, as they say. Um, and it works, and it's perfectly fine. I think there's plenty of room, and one should go out of the way to surround themselves with people of similar but different viewpoints of culture, the world, and everything else. That's how you have enriching, lasting relationships with people. And that's why Jill and I have more or less stayed in touch for 20 years. It's a whole thing. Jim Salzberg says, funny, I'm the opposite. Total womanhood, but never got Red Dwarf humor. We're allowed to be different. Yeah, yeah. So you're big Whovian, but you're not into Red Dwarf. Yeah, I'm huge into it. Humanoid. Humanoid. I got you. Whovian. He's just saying Whovian. Rate the Godzilla Kid / Kenny's on Punchable. Huh? You have to elaborate, sir, because I'm over my head, brother. Over my head. Tom Baker, #1. I've heard good things about Tom Baker. Ian Sweeney says, a worrying trend online recently. People using "it's okay to have a different opinion" line while calling people "mind the city, it's chills." Yeah, in relation to modern and rich clash and IPs. Yeah. I I struggle with this. But it's something that I really want to try to be better at, right? Because I'm very good at, in the moment, but not necessarily a fandom really thing, just in general how I tend to treat people. But I want to make sure that people can feel heard. I don't have to agree with you to respect your right to have an opinion that differs from mine, and I might learn something if I just shut up and listen. Which, of course, is not in very good keeping with this show, as I'm the only person that you can hear. So it's the opposite of self. I don't know what I'm saying, but the point being that I'm with you. I don't feel like people that like certain things are by default good or bad. I don't think people that don't like certain things are inherently good or bad. It's how you take those standpoints and then use them to interact with others that helps me form my opinion of that individual. Uh, I don't like the whitewashing thing where you've got people that's like, oh, look at this. Isn't this great? Like, oh my goodness. Like, these Lego figures are perfect in every way. Like, they are, because, Bjorn made them for us and they're wonderful and I love them. But if these were like, say this was supposed to be Batman and this is supposed to be Robin, I'd be like, oh, this is a creative take on the genre. And it's so brave and bold and new and deep. Like, these would be a horrible Batman and Robin figure set. Absolutely horrible. And whereas I could say, I see what they think they were going for here, but it doesn't correspond to my imagery of Batman, and be aware of that if you buy this. Not a fan, don't recommend it, da 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 da. But when you can't be critical of something, even something you like, that's a problem. You have to be able to look at something that you like or love and see the chinks in the armor and the holes in the plot and things like that. You have to be able to do that. If you can't, then you're not being honest with yourself, and you're certainly not in a position to be honest with everybody else about how you feel about these things. Will McLaughlin asks, is there a fandom that if someone said they were into, I would be repulsed? Hitler. That's one. If you're a member of the Hitler fan club, we can't be friends. I don't know. No, I don't. In terms of like pop culture at large, not really. Like, there's certainly some things that I'm very much not a fan of. Twilight is one. I think that's a dangerous franchise, to say the least. I would say that all the things I can think of that immediately I'm like, dude, like I don't think you should like. I would rather you didn't like that. But usually it's because I can understand why they probably like that thing and try to show them some other healthy characters that evoke some of the same stuff, right? Um, a great example is the 50 Shades of Grey series, okay? That is not how the world of BDSM functions. It should not function that way. It's a very toxic relationship that I have absolutely no love for. But if they're into like the sensual side of that, like there's way better examples of it, like the film Secretary and some other things. So I wouldn't be repulsed that they're into it, although I'm repulsed by that thing that they like, right? But I would take it as an opportunity to help them find other things that maybe they can get something healthier out of it. So even the person that might be, uh, in the Hitler fan club, like I feel like even people that far gone can be rehabilitated. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't think that I'd be repulsed by the person, but I would be repulsed by the fandom in some cases. Yes. Bjorn Jorgen says, I'm not Whovian. I've only just recently heard of Red Dwarf. Welcome to a brave new world. The Kennys in Canberra series is so much worse. Oof. Oof. When I say Doctor Who, I say all of it. I've only seen one Doctor Who thing all the way through, and I was not a huge fan of it. And I've tried watching the television series as far back as the early 80s. Never got into it. Ever. And I realize you weren't really talking to me, but hey, we're here. We're having fun. Oh, so which Godzilla movie, Kid or Kenny, do you want to crunch the most or rate others on that scale? Gotta be honest, Godzilla versus Megalon Kid is the most punchable, just because every time he opens his dubbed mouth, I want it to die inside. Like, boom, kill him. Certainly whichever film it is, which is the dream, right? The one that Minya's in. That kid, that character, not the child, that actor that played him, but the character needs to be pushed off of a building, a high one at that. Uh, there's a lot of them. Like, there's a lot of kids to consider here. Honestly, take all the human characters out of every single kaiju film, except for the original Dr. Serizawa from the first Godzilla film. That's it. That all other humans in Godzilla are just, there's no point to them being there. Give me big kaiju fights and leave me alone. That's my rating. Well, McLaughlin says, words online can sometimes come across much more harsh than if you're talking in person. This is true. Tone is very difficult to convey over text. I think people do not give themselves or others enough leeway to try to understand the conveyance that's being attempted. Kieran Ball says, Red Dwarf's brilliant show until the last TV movie, then they ruined it. There's always room for more Red Dwarf, and if it is better, great. I agree. The last one was, there's bits of it that are good and bits of it that aren't so great. It's the whole thing. Bum, 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 bum. Andy Morgan, welcome to the show, says Doctor Who, Night Court, Star Trek, Sarah Jane Adventures, Godzilla, Stargate, SG-1, and Atlantis. Important distinction. And The Last of the Summer Wine. So those are like your big fandoms? Cool. I'm not repulsed by any of this. Not repulsed by, and welcome. I don't think I've seen your name before, so welcome to the show. We hope you'll stick around. We always have conversations like this on Mondays, and there are feature videos put out as often as humanly possible. World Bit of Cardboard says, I have loved Doctor Who, Godzilla, Blake's 7, Red Dwarf from childhood. I know there's good or bad at each. True. 100%. Bjorn Jorgensen says, I'm a huge fan of Boy Meets World, but that show is a mess when it comes to continuity. True. And Stephen S. talking about Teletubbies with the whole repulsive stuff, I'm presuming. And Will feels this way about ranch dressing. Who hurt you? And why were they squirting ranch dressing in your eyes at the time? Jason Garcia says, but in Twilight, the ever-beautiful man who respects her for being who she is and won't pressure her and glitters like a girl's best friend is the pinnacle of contemporary literature. I realize that you're being sarcastic, and I appreciate you very much. I owe you a beer. Worldman of Cardboard says, I never really enjoyed fantasy films like Conan and was never into He-Man as well, but I do enjoy listening to people who are fans, but like myself, Retro Blasting Analytics was, thank you very much. I am in very esteemed company in that sentence, and I thank you for that. I think they are much better at it than I am. I like to look at things with all the ethereal. You want to watch Conan O'Brien or the Barbarian? So like, hey, if you guys see what the president did, or like, like which one are you wanting to watch?
The one with Grace Kelly in it.
With what? Oh, Grace Kelly?
Isn't that Grace Kelly?
Oh, Grace Kelly was in a lot of 50s films when she was dancing.
Grace Jones. Yes.
Grace Kelly and Conan the Destroyer would have been the fucking best, dude. But yeah, we can watch Conan the Destroyer tonight if you want.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm down for that. I love that one. And the copy I grew up with was recorded off television and was heavily edited.
Mine was too.
So every time that I'm talking to them, and also you. Sorry, kidding. It was every time I get to see it in its full form, it's still a treat, even though I've owned that on DVD uncut for over 20 years now. But yeah, apparently we are watching Conan the Destroyer after the show, which is a good thing. Very excited to do that. Ben Sully says, this week I've mostly been down the rabbit hole of the 5 cuts of Blade Runner before watching Blade Runner 2049. You liked it? I loved Blade Runner 2049. Loved it. I love them both. Then watching guys on YouTube magnet fishing. Okay. I'm not even sure I want to know. Andy Morgan says, Mickey must be in Godzilla. Sure. If you want to keep Mickey in Godzilla, I guess fine. Like, I get it. Kieran Ball says, everyone has the right to their own opinion, but not if they like CBS Star Trek. You mean like Star Trek Discovery, the newer stuff? Because technically all Star Trek is. No, I see what you're doing. I get where you're coming from. Never mind. Jim Salzberg says, anyone see Cybertronic Spree cover Eye Without a Face? I haven't watched it yet. But I'm a huge fan. Stephen Collectibles says, that hat's my favorite thing of the day. Love it. Hey, no worries. I got this from a shop in Indonesia, of all places. That's where Sean does a lot of his merch. He licensed out to them. They made some great hats. So, like this hat and my Last Days of Humanity hat came from there. Very cool people. Takes a long time to get your stuff, but it's well worth it. This is very nice. I've had this over a year now, and I'm very happy with it. Future Pal and I go way back, man. I've been friends with him for 19 years. That have been 2003. And for a very brief period, he was considering getting a drummer, and I was in the running. And then we ultimately decided that was not a good idea. Ian Sweeney says, yeah, I have some unpopular opinions on modern Star Wars. On sub from a couple channels recently who just taken a little too much glee in dismissing similar opinions to mine. Fair enough. Yes, I was hoping to go to that show, and it did not happen. Yeah, I think that a lot of the venues were getting trigger happy with some of the cancellations on this stuff for sure. Ian Sweeney brings up a good point. Didn't announce that you were unsubbing in the comments section. I just unsub and I get them out of my life. I would love a Beastmaster remake as well if it was done properly. I don't know that you could have a viable Beastmaster film without live animals, and I also know that having live animals in the film would be very problematic. And who do you get to replace, that cast of characters? I don't know. I think it would be cool. There are some deeper themes in the original that really could be fleshed out to where it's just a cool fantasy show. Like, I would really love to see that. But I love the original and have it on DVD. I'm very pleased with about that. It's not easy to get a hold of it, apparently. The boys and Cat of the Copper in Houston. Oh, I haven't seen those guys in a long time. I would go, but one, I'm 4 hours away from Houston, and two, we're watching Conan the Destroyer, so I can't. Can't. Bjorn Jorgensen says is almost finished Susan's book. If you are interested in the book that she has written, which is historical fiction, that purports what if the Jack the Ripper killer had a counterpart that was female. And that book is called From Jill with Love, available right now at jilltheripper.com/purchase. Check it out. It's good stuff. And new books are on the way. Kieran Ball says, British TV trivia. Back in the 1980s, Grace Jones appeared on a UK chat show and felt so insulted by the host that she slapped him in the face several times that he pulled off of him. Yes, Grace Jones had that reputation in a lot of places, for sure. Jason, I would presume that they're in Dallas tomorrow. My day job, I have a client that's overseas, and I am working late, so alas, I will not be able to go. But I will send my vibes to the boys. Amazing band, Cattle Decapitation. Really pushing the limits of what extremity is in music and making it also more extreme and more accessible at the same time, which I didn't think was doable, but damn it, they cracked the code. Victor says, trying to imagine being insane enough to insult Grace Jones when she's striking distance. Like, she just goes after you and shit. Oh, that's great. It's good stuff. But as we are coming to the end of the show, I just want to thank everyone for being here, and I just want to say that there are some milestones I think that are coming up for this channel and then for this community, and they would not be happening without you fine folks. You might notice some big things pretty soon. Um, we're on the cusp of getting to that next level ever so slightly, like baby steps in the growth of the channel. And without you guys coming to these streams, without you watching the videos, without the interaction, it wouldn't be a thing at all. And I thank you so much for inspiring me as a community to start doing this. And for those of you that came from, the Iconicon stuff, and then it's grown, and I know I've got some people that just kind of came in from the street, and I was like, hey, what's all this now? And we've grown our own little corner of the internet here. Which I've done before for other types of things, but this one means so very much to me. And I thank you very much for giving me a reason to turn these lights on and uh, talk about things like this with you. This is one of the highlights of my week. I really strongly enjoy having conversations like this. And I've always struggled to make them part of my content in other places. So being able to do these types of things here um, is really special to me. And as long as I have things to talk about, I will keep doing them. So if you guys have ideas, let me know. The patrons are very good about giving me ideas of things to talk about, and I cannot thank them enough for that. But know that you don't have to be a patron to tell me something that you'd like to hear me talk about. So please let me know in the comments on any video or here if there's something you want to hear about. Jason is saying something very kind, says, these streams are becoming my favorite thing about Mondays. That means an awful lot to me. Thank you. James Salzberg says, your interviews make great podcast listening while doing other work. Much appreciated. Yes, we do have to get some guests back on here as well. I have not been reaching out to folks very much lately for a lot of different reasons. But as I'm settling back into some new normals with life, I would like to do that again. I would like to have some returning guests and certainly some new guests as well. Always open to suggestions on that as well. World Meta Cardboard says, thank you guys for being so kind to you, your wife, and you. Of course. Of course. Absolutely. You kidding me? James Salzberg says, Monday nights rock from these streams for me. Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. And yes, Bjorn, one of these days you do need to get on one of these streams for sure. Absolutely. Bucho says, I'm rarely home to tune in at this time, but if when I am, I'm all aboard the Grindhead train. That's because you're an amazing fist of Pucho. Thank you very much. Gary Ball says, we love tuning in to hear about your food shopping, delivery service, your beer consumption, toy purchases, and sues. Fair enough. I see you. Fair enough. trying to, doing the thing, the whole thing. But at the end of the day, you guys are the reason that this place exists and that it continues to thrive. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It does mean everything, and we're looking forward to giving you that much more in 2022. Don't know where it's going to go for sure. I know where I'd like to see things go and what kind of things to happen, but you can never tell, because this time last year, I was not thinking about doing YouTube again, and 5 months later I was. So anything can happen. So I thank you guys for the support and all of your love. And people are asking where the cat is. She is right next to me on the floor, being a weirdo. So with this, I will leave you. Karen Ball says, awesome live stream, fun topic, great guest in the chat. Take care, everyone. And I hope that all of you take care as well. We will see you very, very soon. May all your grinds be merry. May all your card backs be straight. May you be able to find anything you're looking for at any given time at a price you feel is reasonable. I'm out of here. I love you guys. Take care. Bye.